course, we've got a lovely pathway, but leading to nothing. So we need to get going. To finish off the garden, we're going to be working right in the area here with some beautiful plants that will enjoy growing in this deep shade. So first up, we need to clear what we don't want, get some compost in here and turn the soil over to get it ready for planting. When clearing under trees, always remember to avoid damaging the tree roots. Always remember to prepare the soil by adding loads and loads of compost. Because ideally, tree root disturbance should be kept to a minimal. It's wiser to underplant trees with perennial plants rather than annuals, which require replanting every year. However, this is not a standard rule of thumb. It really just depends entirely on what you're wanting to put in your garden and how much effort you're wanting to put in. The plant that I'm using here is a beautiful, graceful, delicate plant. Well, that's what it looks like, just from the outside. And you might think, well, underneath this deep shade, is this plant going to cope? Absolutely, it's a fuchsia. It's called Fuchsia thalia. It is one of the toughest fuchsias that you're ever going to lay your hands on. So if you're worried about killing them, well, then this is the oak that you want to go for. You can see it's got clusters of these very graceful flowers, but really an incredibly good garden plant. In the garden, these little chaps are going to get about 1 meter in height, nice and tall, and because I'm putting a bench here, I do want some colour at the back. It's no use putting little ground covers at the back here because you're not going to get to see them. So consider your plant material, must enjoy the shade and must give you a bit of height. And that's why these little oaks, little firecrackers I think they are, is going to do the job just perfectly. It's often a challenge to establish plants under the canopy of large trees. Shade and lack of moisture are both problems in these conditions, but there are a number of plants that will thrive in these situations. Most importantly as well, it's all about the soil preparation. You've got to dig really big holes, put in loads of compost and superphosphate or bone meal to alleviate the problems. Underplanting with appropriate herbaceous materials that don't compete aggressively with the tree's surface roots is also beneficial. We've planted up our shade-loving garden and it's just looking so bright and colourful. Hard to believe that all of these plants really love the shade. And that's the most important thing. Always find out the plants that you're choosing for your garden are going to be suited to the right position. Just like these New Guinea impatiens. These are summer-loving plants. And of course, we're in the height of summer and they are just going to love it. If you live in an area where you get lots of frost, treat these as an annual. If you live in the subtropics, then it will go right through the year. However, if you are in a frost region, after the summer, lift them out the garden, put them into a container and put them somewhere where they won't get frosted. But these little guys are going to get nice and full. Look at the size of these flowers. I mean, just beautiful. In front of it, I've used a plectranthus, which is an indigenous plant. It's called lemon and lime, and you can see exactly why it's called that. It's a low-growing ground cover, beautiful bright colours. Remember, any goldens, yellows in a deep shaded area just really bounce the light up at you and say, come and look at this part of the garden, because that's where I want you to go. And that's exactly what it's doing. In front of it, we've used a little mossy plant called Selaginella, and that's also a little creeping ground cover, very soft, very tropical looking. But remember, if you're in frosted areas as well, treat that as an annual. It will grow wonderfully in a tropical climate right through the year, but in areas where you do get cold, lift it up, put it into pots, and keep it to one side. As an alternative, if you wanted something that would last the whole year round, then rather look at a ground cover called heuchera, which is beautiful, large leaves, and that will cope equally as well. We've kept the anthericum, which is now called chlorophytum, this little grass over here, indigenous grass, just massed it on the one side, which keeps that foresty look that we were wanting. And lastly, right in the back of the garden, just to give us a bit of depth into it, I found these beautiful Clivias at my local garden centre. Wow, I mean, these are seriously awesome. In full flower, looking gorgeous, beautiful strap-like leaves, and that, they just love growing in forest conditions because that's actually where they come from. Always remember that. Think about where this plant originally grew. Grew in the subtropical forests of KwaZulu-Natal, right under the trees where there's lots of mulch, and that's exactly what we've got right here. Remember, of course, after they flowered, they get the red berry. Don't throw those away, pick the seed. scrape off the outer layer and plant them, and you'll have lots of little guys coming up in no time at all. Our garden is finished, planted up with our beautiful pathway, and of course our gabion bench really looks nice. This is a spot under the trees where I can just sit and relax. The dogs seem to have made themselves very comfortable already. We've used a beautiful eucalyptus mulch. It has a wonderful smell. It also has a bit of an insect repelling action, which is even better. But more importantly, the mulch serves to form that layer of leaves that we normally find in a forest. And in time, once these leaves do start falling, it will form a natural layer. But it's very important that we try and substitute that immediately. So this mulch is just doing the job, and also it finishes off the garden pretty neatly. Two other alternatives we're using under the shade, and number one are the endless hydrangeas. Hydrangeas are great for semi-shaded area, and certainly in the deep, deep shade. The problem there is you're not going to find the amazing colour. However, in dappled shade, they are fantastic. They will just love growing there. With big, big flowers, remember, Endless Summer is one of the varieties that will go right throughout the summer into autumn. Remember to keep them well mulched, feed them with hydrangea food in order to get your specific colour that you're wanting. Another firm favourite of mine to put under trees, of course, is the aucuba. Now, if you live in areas that get loads of frost, an aucuba is a beautiful plant to use because it's kind of like the equivalent of the croton that we find on the coast, except the aucuba's got these large yellow and green leaves. Fantastic shrub for deep shade. This is something that you must always remember, because deep shade in frosted areas is quite a difficult combination to find a plant that'll grow well there.